the road. Good evening. It is January 19th, 2021, and this is a meeting of the Shrewsbury Conservation Commission. As a preliminary matter, this is John Ostrowski, Chairman of the Conservation Commission. Please permit me to confirm that all members and support staff are present and can hear me. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Martha Gatch?
Aye.
Jason Port?
Aye.
Bob Jakes?
Aye.
Ken Polito?
Here.
Staff, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Brad Stone?
Here.
This open meeting of the Conservation Commission is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12, 2020, due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus. The order, which you can find posted with agenda materials for this meeting, allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will feature public comment. For this meeting, the Conservation Commission is convening by telephone and video conference via Google Meet, as posted on the town's website identifying how the public may join. We are now turning to the first item on the agenda. Before we do so, permit me to cover some ground rules for effective and clear conduct of our business and to ensure accurate meeting minutes. I, the chair, will call on each applicant to make their project presentation. After they conclude their presentation, the chair will go down the line of members first and then to staff members, inviting each by name to provide any comment or questions. After commission members and staff have spoken, the chair will afford public comment. The chair asks that members of the public who wish to speak identify their names and addresses only. Upon completion of public comment, I will call upon the commission members to offer a motion and then for a second. Each vote taken on the motion will be conducted by roll call vote. Lastly, please remember to mute and unmute your phone by pressing *6 or mute your computer when you are not speaking so as not to trigger your camera feed or background noise. All right, with that said, we'll dive into our agenda, and the first item is to review and approve minutes. And we do have 3 months worth of minutes in front of us right now, at least in front of myself and Brad. We'll be that's for October, November, and December of 2020, and we'll be bringing them to the full commission within a few weeks for vote on our next meeting, which will be February. The second item is to sign bills. And Brad, do you know, are there any bills we'll be signing when we come in? There usually is.
I'd have to double check. If anything, there might be a legal ad one, but that's the only one I'd be aware of.
And they'll be coupled with our signatures for any orders we approve tonight, correct? All right. Going on to our meetings and hearings. Before we start, we have a couple continued hearings, so let me read them up front in case anybody is tuned in and they won't have to sit through this whole night. The first one is a continued public hearing regarding the notice of intent filed by Equestrian Building Company for driveway construction, utility connections, and drainage connections at 183 Spring Street. The applicants requested that to be continued, and we will continue it to our next meeting, February 16th. The second one is also a continued public hearing. It's regarding the notice of intent filed by Equestrian Building Company for the construction of a single-family house, utility connections, and stormwater management systems at 185 Spring Street. That also will be continued till our next meeting, February 16th. And we should have one more. Yep. The last one is a continued public hearing regarding the notice of intent filed by AC Daces for backyard hardscape and landscaping, including retaining wall, walkways, stairs, and plantings at 23 Shirley Road, And that will be continued to our next hearing, which is February 16th. And now we'll dive into the agenda, and there's just a little explanation tonight. Some of the hearings have been moved out of our typical order. We typically hear continued public hearings first, but tonight we'll be hearing a few new public hearings up front because of conflicts with some of the presenters with other meetings tonight. So Martha, can you do us the pleasure on the first one?
Sure. Notice is hereby given in accordance with the provisions of General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, that the Lake Quinsigamond Association, P.O. Box 4476 T.S., Shrewsbury, has filed a notice of intent to implement a long-term vegetation management plan at 144 Sewell Street, Newton Pond, to manage dense growths of invasive and nuisance aquatic plants. A public hearing will be held on the above notice at 7 p.m. on Tuesday evening, January 19, 2021.
Anyone here to make a presentation tonight on that?
Yes, that would be me.
Okay.
I'm Anna Chase. I'm with ESS Group, and we're representing the Lake Quinsigamond Commission, not Lake Quinsigamond Association. There's a little bit of a missed communication there. So we're seeking an order of conditions for Newton Pond to control the overgrowth of invasive species. And a little bit of background, Newton Pond is about a 59-acre water body on the border of Boylston and Shrewsbury. And thank you for your flexibility as we're permitting at both towns today. It's a relatively small, relatively shallow pond, but is used for recreation. There's a public boat launch used for paddling and fishing, as well as providing wildlife and fish habitat. But ESS conducted an assessment of the pond in 2019, and we found that there was pretty dense and widespread growth of a few different invasive species. Let's see if I can share my screen. The three invasive species that we found were, can everybody see this map?
Yes.
Okay.
Can you blow it up at all, Anna?
I can zoom in a little bit. It'll kind of cut off the map a little bit, but you can get the gist of what it's showing here. So this is a map showing the occurrence of one of the invasive species. This is fanwort. And then we also found another invasive species, variable leaf milfoil, and then a third Eurasian milfoil. And all three of these species are ecologically damaging. They can outcompete native species, form very dense beds, leading to decreases in water quality and habitat quality. As you can see from this figure, they're distributed kind of throughout the pond. They're not confined to just one region or cove. So because of the wide distribution of these invasive plants, we're proposing, or we're asking for approval to use a variety of different management methods to address the growth of these invasive species while minimizing impacts to non-target species. And the Newton Pond Management Plan includes a variety of different management approaches, including both chemical and physical approaches. Because of the widespread abundance of these invasive species, herbicide treatments are going to be necessary to sort of stop the growth and decrease it. The management plan includes a variety of different herbicides, not all of which some of which might not be used throughout the duration of the assessment of the monitoring or of the program. One of the most likely first step would be a whole lake application of the systemic herbicide sonar, and the systemic herbicides act on the entirety of the plant. They're absorbed and transported through the vascular system, so it results in dieback of the whole plant. So this is an effective control method. A whole lake treatment would be warranted in this case because it's dispersed. These plants are dispersed throughout the water body. So there's a couple of systemic herbicides included in the management plan. There's also a few contact herbicides, including Clipper and Reward. And these are only they only result in death to portions of the plants that are in contact with the chemical. So it only causes dieback of the stems. So the roots survive when contact herbicides are applied, so the plants can grow back from the roots. So these are useful in sort of different situations and for different applications than the systemic herbicides that are also included in the plan. These might be useful for regrowth or treatment of areas of regrowth or stubborn, really dense patches after an initial whole lake systemic treatment, which would knock back the populations that are throughout the pond. We've also included an algicides in the lake management plan. This is because sometimes the application of herbicide can cause increases in algae or cyanobacteria in water bodies due to release of these organisms from pressure competition with plants for light and nutrients. This doesn't always happen, so it's entirely possible that algicides use might never be warranted. But if a bloom were to occur at Newton Pond, we could copper-based algicide could be used to prevent the algae populations from reaching bloom levels, and that would be the decision about whether to proceed with an algicide would be made based on the ground sampling and the knowledge of a certified lake manager. So in addition to the chemical controls that I mentioned, we are also including a couple of physical controls to try to get a handle on these invasives, including both harvesting and bottom sealing. And for harvesting, we've included both hand harvesting and diver-assisted suction harvesting, or DASH. It's the same principle for both. It's fairly self-explanatory. Person physically pulls the entirety of the plant, including its root system. So it's a very specific and selective control method because there's actually a person who can pluck individual plants, but it's extremely labor intensive. So it's only really viable for use on small areas. So it wouldn't be useful now given the widespread growth of these plants, but in future years, it might be that technique might be useful for certain smaller or isolated locations. Similarly, bottom sealing is another physical approach to controlling invasives. It is not a selective control measure, though, that involves the placement of a negatively buoyant sheet of material that is placed on the lake bottom. It prevents growth of plants by obstructing light and physically obstructing growth. So this is not selective, so it will only be placed in an area that was dominated by these non-native plants and only in a very small area. For example, maybe near the boat launch or near a dock or a shoreline area of specific concern. And these barriers are placed temporarily for at least 2 months, but they're removed before the end of the growing season. So their impacts are limited to 1 year. So all these management approaches, they're just tools in our toolbox. So it's possible that not all of them would be used throughout the duration of the management program. And the pond will be monitored annually, both pre and post treatment every year. And the results of these monitoring efforts will determine what management actions are planned going forward. And because this is a long-term management plan, we are ideally seeking a 5-year order of conditions for this project.
Okay, are you ready for questions?
Yes.
Martha?
Okay. Good evening. Thank you very much, Anna. I have a couple questions. What were the different colors in the PDF that you showed when you were showing the distribution of the plants?
Let me reshare that. So those are coded for the total coverage of the species. So red indicates, all right, let me know when you can see that. Red indicates densest cover, so that's, oh, sorry, it's not ideal for sharing over screens in terms of the proportions of here, but the red indicates coverage of the bottom of the pond set greater than 70%. And then orange is 50 to 75% coverage of this specific species of invasive plant. In this case, it's Eurasian milfoil. And then going down to yellow is 25 to 50% cover, and then green is 1 to 25% cover. And blue is the species was not detected during our survey.
Okay, thank you. That was very helpful. When you're talking about applying the systemic herbicides, are you applying them throughout the pond or just in the areas where the invasive species are found?
So standardly, the systemic herbicide, which would be applied only by a Massachusetts licensed herbicide applier with a valid license to apply, which is different than our company. But they would do a whole lake treatment, which brings the concentration of the herbicide, and it varies by the specific type of herbicide and the formulation used, up to the lowest possible level to see impacts on the target species, which would, in this case, would be fanwort and both of the milfoils. And it's maintained at that level for a certain period of time, which varies by the different herbicide in use. So it's picked up or it's deposited throughout the pond and maintained at a level concentration throughout the whole pond. For the systemic, for the contact, it's more of a directed, either a spray or a subsurface injection at like one site.
And do you expect that you will see impacts on other plants, non-target species?
So all these all the herbicides that we've included, they've been approved for use by the EPA and then through a second layer of regulation for the Mass DEP. And they've been judged to be very safe to use and be effective on target plants without. So that's not to say there would be no impacts on non-target species, but it's a bit of a trade-off in terms of if nothing is done, then the invasives that are currently in Newton Pond will continue to expand and grow, and it will get worse and worse. So the herbicides are judged to have been effective. They're used in many, many ponds throughout the state. I've worked on several projects recently that actually use the herbicide that's most likely going to be applied or would be recommended to be applied at Newton Pond is probably Sonar, because it targets both fanwort and the milfoils. And I participated on a different project this summer that utilized that same herbicide, and we standardly see very good impacts. It's not to say there's no impacts to non-target species, but they are standardly much more effective against the targeted species. And once the invasives are knocked back, then the natives have a chance to actually regrow in those areas. Whereas without treatment, the invasives will just continue to outcompete the natives, and they won't be able to get a chance to get a foothold and sort of come back.
Okay. Just so you understand where I'm coming from, I'm a licensed herbicide applicator.
Oh, great.
But I don't work in aquatic systems. I'm licensed for terrestrial and wetlands. So I understand that there will be spillover. What I'm trying to help others understand, I think, is how much impact they might see on the entire vegetation if you're treating something if you're treating a pond with something that's going to kill everything. You're going to get some spillover, but you expect and will nurture the native species to come back. Is that
yes
your understanding?
Yeah.
Okay.
I admit I'm not an expert on the efficacy of the different herbicides on different species, but they are targeted to certain types of plants. So certain herbicides are not effective against fanwort, which is one of the 3 species at this pond. So certain native plants, may be impacted by these, but they're not the target species, so they tend to not be nearly as impacted as the milfoils and the fanwort.
Okay, thank you. I have a couple other questions, if you don't mind, if the commission doesn't mind. You talked in your plan about only treating a portion of the pond at a time to avoid oxygen deprivation. But I didn't. Is that true? I didn't hear you say anything about that tonight.
I believe so. One of the herbicides that is included in the plan, I believe it's Procellacor. That is another systemic herbicide, and that has it's approved in Massachusetts, and it's promising, but it's one of the newer approved herbicides, and it has some additional requirements put in place by Massachusetts in terms of the amount of the pond that can be treated at any one time. There's always a risk when you're doing an herbicide that or doing a large-scale herbicide application, that if too many plants are killed off at once, then the decomposition of all that organic matter could cause oxygen depletion. I don't believe that was a worry enough for this pond given the current amount of plants, because I believe the current recommendation is to do a sonar treatment, which that's one of the systemic herbicides that you bring the concentration in the whole pond up to a certain level. So it's not really possible to maintain the concentration in a portion of the pond at a certain level for days or weeks without it getting to the rest of the pond. So I'm not sure about that.
Oh, okay.
I know my boss is also on this call and he might have some insight into this.
Yeah, hi, Matt Ladwig from ESS. So as far as the oxygen depletion goes, it's more of a concern with the contact herbicides, just because those result in a really quick death of the plants. But we wouldn't expect to be using those for an entire area of the pond. It would be smaller areas at a time. So there are some restrictions there as to how much you can treat at one time, and all of those would be followed in accordance with the label.
Oh yeah, and I forgot to mention one of the differences with the systemic herbicides is that so they're taken up by the whole plant. So it's a more protracted die off as opposed to the contact herbicide where it's like spraying Roundup on your yard where the plants die pretty much instantly. The systemic herbicide it takes longer to act, and the plant death is kind of stretched out over a longer period of time, which minimizes those like decreases in oxygen.
Yeah, and Martha, going back to your prior question about the impact on native plant species, a lot of the native plants that we have in the pond they reproduce by seed. So even if they are impacted, that seed bank is still there and they can come back. Whereas the plants that we're targeting for treatment are perennial plants, and they tend to spread by fragmentation. So if we kill that entire plant, then they have a lot fewer tools to use to come back in the pond.
Okay, thank you. I have one more question, which is you mentioned in your plan that there was a problem with nutrient-rich water, I guess. And my question is there an education component in this somewhere? I'm assuming that a lot of those nutrients are coming in from the homes around the pond. Is there an education component for the residents to help them understand and implement best management plant practices?
Currently that is not included in the management plan.
If I could suggest that would be something to consider, because it does you no good to knock back the plants if they're just going to be encouraged to come back again.
Can I break in one sec? Peter Collins with the Lake Commission. So the residents around Newton Pond actually are very, very well versed and they're very involved in the plan here, and they are taking steps to avoid washing the car in the driveway, using cutting back on using the certain types of fertilizer on their lawn, things like that. So they're all taking this very seriously because they know there's a problem there, and they've been very active in mitigating this whole thing. So of all the areas of the watershed that we deal with, they're probably the most faithful and knowledgeable about what not to do to promote plant growth.
Great, thank you, Peter.
Yep, you got it.
Okay, I'm all set.
Jason,
Yeah, just one follow-up question. Are there any negative aspects of the herbicide for the residents or the wildlife in the pond?
So all the herbicides that we would be using are the ones that are most recommended. There are certain like recommendations for contact with the water after the application, but these are usually very short. And in most cases, I believe for sonar, Matt, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe there is no restrictions for use afterwards. It's usually just the herbicide applicator. They usually post signage to stay off the water for 24 hours, but it's not like a label restriction.
Okay.
Yeah, and sort of going along with what I mentioned earlier is like all the herbicides, they've passed review by the EPA, and then another sort of hoops to jump through for the Mass DEP to be safe for use in Massachusetts waters. That's not to say that there will be no impacts or could be no impacts to other species. It's just they've been judged to be acceptably low levels to be accepted by the state DEP.
Okay. Thank you.
Bob,
I'm all set.
I'm all set, thank you.
Ken,
Yes, just so you know, the Lake Commission has been working with the residents of Newton Pond for some time with the help of selectmen. This treatment mirrors basically the same type of treatment that's going on Lake Quinsigamond, which this board has issued a order of conditions for. And it's important to note that Newton Pond is the headwaters for Lake Quinsigamond. So any treatment we can do in Newton Pond is going to also help Newton Pond, but it's also going to have a benefit for Lake Quinsigamond for, you know, trying to head off some of these weeds from taking over. So it's a positive. Would be a positive effect for both Lake Quinsigamond and Newton Pond.
okay, Ken. Anna, I have a question regarding scheduling. Does the management plan have any schedule in there for how you would go about this? Which, you know, would you go for systemic treatment? You did mention that as sort of like a lead-in type of treatment, but in terms of timing, what time of the year would it be done, and how do you notify the residents on Newton Pond so that they don't schedule parties where maybe they would be swimming in the pond? Is that been addressed in your management plan?
So the management plan currently doesn't lay out a specific schedule, but I know, or we know from the assessment, the first step will probably be the systemic treatment with sonar, and that's best applied early in the growing season. So depending on the permitting pathway for this project, if it gets approved soon enough, then that could be applied this year, early in the growing season.
Which is when, Anna, what month-wise? Give me.
I believe May. Matt, are you aware of any difference from that? Because we hadn't spelled out a specific treatment plan yet.
Yeah, it's typically earlier is better. So if you know, you could even start application as soon as April if you know, if a contract was in place to do that. But applications can also be started as late as June and still be effective for that particular herbicide. The key thing is just, you know, it's not something that you would want to apply late in the season.
Yep.
And it does require a decent amount of contact time to be effective. So
Right.
and another reason to get started early.
How do you go about notifying the neighbors when you're doing this so they can plan their activities around the applications? Is that in the plan where you would give a, you know, 3 weeks notice prior to application, or?
I believe that's usually something that the herbicide applicator takes care of, but Matt, am I wrong about that, or?
Yeah, that's usually required as part
Yeah.
of their permit to do the application. They have to notify. So they'll post notifications to public access and the like.
Okay. All right.
Excuse
Brad?
me, to the chair.
Yep.
On Lake Quinsigamond, typically what we've done, I believe it's probably about 7 to 10 days before the actual application, and they'll actually they'll do postings around the abutters, like on telephone poles and things like that. It's pretty effective. I know this because I usually start getting calls. You know, is it safe to swim? Will it kill my dog? Stuff like that. So, you know, people are taking notice of it. So
Okay.
there's an effort to make sure everybody knows about it. It'll also be posted on the watershed page and on the Lake Quinsigamond Commission webpage as well.
Okay, Peter. Brad, do you have any comments or questions?
Yeah, so just to get the procedural things out of the way, one of the comments I had is that DEP has not issued a file number yet for this that I'm aware of. So I
Yes.
don't think, right. So the commission really shouldn't be taking any action on this tonight. Also, on the notice of intent application, there is no property owner listed on there, but the town is actually the property owner. And just as an FYI, I'm 99% certain that in Boylston as well, the town of Shrewsbury is the owner of Newton Pond there. So we should have the correct property owner information on there, and it does require a signature as well. So I would suggest you reach out to the town manager's office for that to see who he feels is the appropriate person to sign it on behalf of the town. Okay, so that out of the way. The other thing, just reading through the management plan and trying to figure out how I would be most comfortable if I were to condition this particular project. The plan does do a pretty good job of indicating what the perceived problems are out there. None of this is news to me. I've been involved with the pond for over a couple decades. It does a pretty good job of explaining all the options out there. What it doesn't do compared to the typical type plans we have, particularly like development engineering plans, is give us something that we can look at and say, yes, we can condition that. So I'd be a little bit more, curious and looking for something. It doesn't have to be super specific, but a little bit more in terms of protocols as far as how the team would go about the decision-making process. Like, yes, now here's what we found. This is what we're going to decide to use for herbicide treatment, and this is when we're going to do it. And this is the person we're going to notify. That kind of thing. Same thing for mechanical methods. Also, I have questions regarding like the benthic barriers, and that's partly due to my inexperience with them. But keep in mind, I know that once things are put in on the ground, a lot of time they go forgotten, unmaintained, and we've had quite a bit of debris problem with the pond, getting trapped within our spillway. That's a recent rehabilitation project that the town had for that dam. And I'd hate to see, any unnecessary maintenance that we have to do because of, things happening within the pond that we're more or less might be unaware of, unless there's some kind of condition or trigger for making sure that, everybody's notified, everybody knows what's going on, and everybody's on the same page with it. So that's more what I'd be looking for. I get that it's kind of hard to spell everything out with an exact time schedule like you might on a development project, because what you're going to find, and it may change from year, particularly with algae blooms. Algae may not be a problem for 5 years in a row, and all of a sudden the whole thing's covered in algae. So some kind of generic language, like if this is what's going to happen, here's who we're going to notify, here's the process, and here's what we've been doing for monitoring to lead up to that. In terms of the permit term, and it's entirely up to the commission. But being the first round for something like this, I would be more comfortable with the 3-year permit. Commission does have the option for 5, and certainly the commission can extend that as well with very little effort. If things are going great, then it makes sense to do that. But that's just something to consider as well. So that's all I have.
Okay. Okay, let's go to the public to see if anyone has any questions or comments. Is there anyone out there who wishes to speak? All right, I'm not hearing anyone. So we do not have a file number, so we are unable to close this tonight. And we will continue it until our next meeting, which will be February 16th, 2021. Okay?
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Martha, can you do the next one?
Are we doing these one at a time?
We could, Brad, why don't we open them both? Is that okay? Yep, Brad gives us the okay. Why
Then
don't you
do I need to read them both in the entirety, or can I just
Yeah,
read both
read-
addresses on one?
Read them both.
Okay. Notice is hereby given in accordance with the provisions of General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, that 62 Cherry Street, LLC, 14 Pendulum Pass, Hopkinton, Mass. 01748, has filed a notice of intent for the construction of a single-family home at 52 Cherry Street. A public hearing will be held on the above notice at 7 p.m. on Tuesday evening, January 19, 2021. And notice is hereby given in accordance with the provisions of General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, that 62 Cherry Street, LLC, 14 Pendulum Pass, Hopkinton, Massachusetts, 01748, has filed a notice of intent for the construction of a single-family home at 54 Cherry Street. A public hearing will be held on the above notice at 7 p.m. on Tuesday evening, January 19, 2021.
Do we have the presenter for these two hearings?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, can you hear me? This is James Tatro from Thompson Liston Associates.
Go ahead, James.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to try and, can I just click present now to try and share
Yep.
my screen?
Definitely, go
Okay.
ahead.
Okay, let's see. Sorry, I'm just trying to pick the, here it is. Oops. Wow. Okay, can you see that plan on your screen?
Coming up, yep, we see it.
Okay. The two notices of intent are for lots at 52 and 54 Cherry Street. What you see on your screen is the existing conditions. Where I've got the cursor circling, that's a small existing home and someone in a state of disrepair at number 52 Cherry Street.
Yeah, James, can you blow it up a little bit more?
Oh,
It's
yep.
rather small on the screen.
Oops, sorry. Let's try this. Okay. Is that better?
Yeah, it's better. Yep. Yep.
Okay. Again, this is the existing small white house at number 52 Cherry Street in somewhat of a state of a disrepair already, some holes in the roof. And the applicant is proposing to build two homes. I'm going to jump sheets here. On the, in that property and a combination of that, excuse me, and the adjacent property. I apologize, I messed up by trying to move the sheet too far. Let's go to 50%. And let's go to this one. I apologize. A little clunky here. So the applicant intends to demolish that existing home and construct one new home, partially overlapping that same foundation footprint on what is shown here as Lot A. It'd be a 1.5 acre lot, which is on the south, I'll call it, side of Cherry Street, which lot all slopes gently away from the road towards the perennial stream at the very back of this lot. There is no work proposed. Here you see the 200-foot riverfront area limit. There's no work proposed on either lot within the riverfront area. Just want to make that point clear. The wetlands on site are connected to the intermittent stream that goes under Cherry Street and connect to the larger wetland that's associated with, I think we have to call this a tributary of Big Bummet Brook. The wetlands were flagged back on October 26th by Goddard Consulting, and this is their boundary line. You'll notice some other notes here on this property associated with the previous owner, now deceased, with his use. There's a junk car, two different junk trailers, what looks to have been a home heating oil tank, the frame of a car or truck on an area that's just nearly covered with, there's some tires, there's bottles, there's cans, all sorts of debris here. And as part of this project, in addition to constructing this house, the applicant is proposing to remove this junk car remove the junk trailer, remove the oil tank, remove what is either a car or truck frame, and remove all the debris in this particular area. The applicant's proposed house would be 44 feet from the wetlands at the nearest point. The proposed work for the house would be 15 feet from the wetland at the nearest point. We would send roof runoff to an infiltration structure behind the house, which would eat up the 1-inch storm with 3 chambers in an envelope of stone. And on this property in front of the house, you'd have the septic system. This is an area that is not served by sewer. The sewer is somewhere way back off the right of the sheet on this scale. All these houses in this area are served by septic systems and wells. We would have a septic system in the front of the property and a well in the back. And I guess I'll segue, if I may, to the adjacent lot. The adjacent lot, which is numbered as 54 Cherry Street, because the parcel which primarily comprises it right now is number 54 on the town's GIS system. This lot, again, you have wetland at the back of the lot. You are closer to the intermittent stream going under Cherry Street. We would, as part of this proposal, remove one large junk item, a junk trailer. We included, by the way, photos of all these junk items in the filing. And we tried to take the photo with a wetland flag next to it in view. So for instance, if you look among the photos, you'll see this one, you'll see flag 21 in the photo. And when you look over in this area, you'll see flag, I believe it's 4 or 5 in the photo, just to give you some reference that, you know, here it is just a few feet away and there's that flag. So you can, for reference, you can see where these particular things are. But on this lot, the applicant is proposing to build a house, a different shaped house, to get it closer up front to the road. On this particular lot, the applicant would be building the proposed house closer than the town's usual guidelines for a structure from a wetland and for work from a wetland. And we're in compensation or mitigation for that measure. What the applicant wants to do here is, what he's proposing to do is, in Cherry Street here, which is the point where right now stormwater runoff runs down Cherry Street, and at approximately this location, just a little bit downhill from pole 11 on the opposite side, this is where runoff leaves the road and flows over to the wetland. There's no capture of runoff in this area. There's no treatment of it, nothing. And what the applicant would propose to do as part of this notice of intent, again, in mitigation of the fact of not providing the usual minimum 30 feet of separation of structure from wetlands, what the applicant would be proposing to do, in addition to removing this junk trailer, would be to install a Vort Sentry catch basin to capture runoff, get some filtration, and direct that to the wetland and have it discharged to a stone-lined structure here. So on neither lot is the applicant proposing to alter any of the wetlands. On Lot A, the applicant is meeting the usual commission guidelines for being more than 30 feet. This is 44 feet away that the house would be from wetlands, and we would achieve the 15-foot separation. On this lot, because he's closer, the applicant would be helping out by removing the junk, but he would also install a Vort Sentry catch basin in the road to capture runoff. And what I'm trying to trace along here now is the applicant is proposing to install a split rail fence at the limit of work all throughout the back of this lot to discourage any further intrusion toward the wetland. But he's not proposing to alter any wetlands, and he is proposing on both lots, including Lot A, where he's meeting your usual guidelines. He's proposing to do some sizable mitigation because there is quite a bit of junk on this property. Again, I included photos in the notice, and again, also on Lot B, he will be sending all the roof runoff to an infiltration structure, which will eat up the 1-inch storm within it without having any outflow. So I'll try and take any questions that you have, but that's the basic proposal for these two lots.
Martha,
I don't have any questions at the moment. Thank you.
Jason,
I don't have any questions. I do applaud, the developer's desire to remove the junk that's back there. Well, actually, one question on that. How would he or she propose to get into the wetlands to remove the junk cars and junk trailer?
Sure. Well, some of them are actually, Jason, would be pretty easy because, for instance, the stuff down here, this is all where I'm moving the cursor. This is all upland. So he can travel through upland, and he can actually, this is just a frame. You can actually probably tie a chain to it or hook it and winch it out.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with the trailer and the junk oil tank here. In the case of the car, we looked at what is the best approach. Where I'm moving the cursor now, there are some trees, but it actually seems to only be a little bit of low vegetation in this path in the area of from the junk car to number 11. What we'd like to do is in the wintertime while ground is frozen to pick that out of there. So the machine that would do it would make the least impact on the ground. And we would, if short term, if there's disruption, cover over with wood chips or straw and seed again in springtime with appropriate seed for the species that are actually there.
Thank you for clearing that up. The only thing I would also like to say, a comment. I'm not really excited about the encroachment of the house, the new house in Lot B being so close to the wetlands or the work. I understand, and again, I applaud wanting to get in there and remove these objects and install a catch basin, but it's still pretty close. But again, that's just a comment for now.
Sure, I understand. And in that regard, I mentioned this in the cover letter. I just wanted to point out that proposed house on Lot B is not extraordinary in size. As I noted, it's very slightly larger in footprint than the houses existing now at numbers 58 and 62, but it's smaller than the ones at 61, 63, and 64. So just to give you some idea of scale, that we're not proposing something outlandish, and the house is very close because of desire to build a super large house. It's actually representative for the neighborhood.
I'm all set. Thank you.
Bob,
James, could you just tell us a little bit about the history of the creation of these lots? Have these been two separate lots for a long time, or?
Yes, they have. The short answer is that most of what's number 54. I'm going to actually go to the bigger view. So just a second, I'm going to zoom out. This somewhere near this where I've got the cursor now running up to the street. This was the boundary between them.
It.
Oh,
I can't see your cursor.
I'm sorry.
No. But that's all right. So try to explain it without the cursor.
The answer is that they've always been separate, and the one that is number 54 was a parcel of land left over after the creation of the lots numbers 58, 50, 62, etc. And so number 54 is taking some of the land really that was number 52, the historic boundary of 52 Cherry Street.
So so lot 54, which is the one that's encroaching on the wetland or near the wetland, you've actually created a larger lot to try to accommodate that house. Is that correct?
Actually, that's correct. Yeah. If I'd have made a better presentation, I would have said that at the start. Yes.
Well, that's good, but I share my colleagues' feeling about not hitting the 20 to 30 foot And because you just know what's going to happen here. There's going to be encroachment into these resource areas when we're only providing 23 feet. And I guess what I'd like you to do is to come up with something better than just a split rail fence, at least. Because 23 feet is pretty tight. That's all for me, Mr. Chairman.
Ken,
I agree with what Bob said too. I think something should be looked at with that encroachment.
you all set, Ken?
Yes.
James, I also agree with that comment on the 30-foot setback. Also, you keep on mentioning removing the junk as a benefit to, you know, the town or to the wetlands. And really, the junk is on their property, if I'm understanding it correctly, correct? I mean, it's.
Correct. That's
So,
correct.
To whose benefit is removing the junk? You know,
Well, I would just note that the applicant actually, when he went out, didn't even realize the junk was there when he first inspected the site, because he had no cause to try and walk through some of the in some areas dense vegetation to the back of the property. Didn't even realize it was there. A homeowner wouldn't necessarily. And wouldn't necessarily make any effort to get rid of it.
I mean, I got to believe that somebody who's going to buy a piece of property in Shrewsbury is going to know what's on their property. They're going to walk their property at some point, and to find an abandoned oil tank and other vehicles, it isn't going to be sitting long before they pull it out, because it's to the improvement of their property and increasing the value of their property. So I don't think that offers anything to, you know, offset, you know, the fact that they're encroaching upon the 30 feet. That is all to the benefit of the new homeowner.
Okay.
Well, but
Mr. Yep. Chairman, would I be reading the sentiment of the commission correctly if I saw that maybe there isn't as much problem with Lot A, but you would like to see something more with Lot B?
I haven't heard many complaints about Lot A tonight. If I'm wrong, will somebody please tell me so? But I didn't hear anyone objecting to the work on Lot A. It's all been focused on Lot B.
Okay. Well, I mean, obviously you have to open it up, but we may ask for a continuance in regard to Lot B, but I'll certainly try and answer any audience questions if there are.
Yeah, and we still have Brad to go to also.
I'm sorry,
Brad is still going to make comments. Brad, this is a time for you.
Okay, thank you. James, with respect to the proposed drainage, have you reached out to the Highway Division Manager or the DPW Director regarding that proposal?
I have not spoken to him, no.
Okay.
So if he had a preference for a different structure, we'd be perfectly fine with that. But yeah, you're right. It's a communication that should be made.
Right. Well, I guess the concern that I have is, you know, that's part of the town's MS4. So putting the structure in there is going to impose more maintenance requirements for us, for our permitting. There's cost, there's monitoring. Same thing with the point source discharge. We're going to have to do additional work for that. And if that work is being done simply so that these houses can be built, for instance, as a way to appease the commission or some other matter, then you know the town may be a little hesitant to accept something like that. You know, it's not being proposed as part of you know, peak mitigation, for instance, or something of that matter. So there's going to be certainly a burden to the town there. So I would think that the town may have some requirements for that if it's going to be allowed, or they may simply not want to see that there. So you should be reaching out to them regarding that sooner than later.
Okay.
And then, you know, I did get your email. I did see the comments from DEP regarding the wetland boundary. You know, I'm fortunately or unfortunately, I'm very familiar with this neighborhood already in recent years. So I kind of have a sense of what's there. I haven't walked the line since you filed this application, but again, I've been there before. I've got a sense what's there. I don't think that we're going to need peer review on this, but I do like the suggestion of meeting your wetland scientist out there just to take a closer look at it and make any tweaks that he and I may agree upon if necessary, or affirm what's simply on the plan. And then also take a closer look at any of the junk areas or any work around that, the wetland boundary there, just to make sure that we've got good protocols in place for that. So that can happen fairly soon. I can reach out to you and Scott Goddard and schedule a time for that.
Okay.
So that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. And Brad, that applies to both lots, correct? For the walk of the wetland line?
Yes, yeah, that should be a fairly quick visit. We'll just walk the whole thing while we're there.
All right. Let's go to the public. Is there anyone in the public out there tonight who has any comments or questions on this hearing?
Mr. Chairman, my name is Chris Cutler at 11 Hamilton Circle.
Okay.
And I'm in receipt of a letter from Thompson Liston as an abutter. And the letter says that the notice of intent is seeking permission to, quote, construct a single-family home in the 100-foot buffer zone associated with the wetland. And then I've heard this 30-foot requirement. And my question is, how far on Lot B is it from the wetland flag to the road? Maybe Mr. Tetro could answer that. Because I consider any incursion into the wetlands as unnecessary and they should not be violated.
Through the chair, we're not proposing any alteration of wetland, and it's a little difficult to answer the question of how far the wetland is from the road, because if you go to flag number 32 over in this area, it is at the road. You're working away from the road, going down to number 28, back slightly closer to 27, away from the road to number 20. At number 15, you are, I'm putting a scale to paper, as I say this, about 65 feet from the road in that location. And again, you get a little further away, again, then as the numbers continue. But the 30-foot guideline for separation of structures from wetland is the Commission's guideline. It's not the Wetlands Protection Act, but we were in recognition of that this proposal would not achieve it on Lot B. That's why we want to go out of our way to try and provide something of value to the Commission, specifically the installation of a catch basin to improve what is happening with runoff from Cherry Street toward that wetland.
Thank you for that. So the corner, the what would be the northern or western face, if Cherry Street runs north-south, these houses are on the western facing side of the road. Okay. So how far is it from the road to the closest flag through the proposed house? I can't. Again,
it's about 65 feet from the road to number 15.
Okay, so
which is the path that I'm sort of tracing now with the cursor.
Right. So, and is that where the incursion is occurring of the 100-foot buffer zone, or is that the 30-foot measurement you have on this lot B?
It's both. This line, I don't know if you can see me tracing with the crosshairs. This line is 100 feet from the wetland. So almost the entirety of this lot B, is within 100 feet of the wetlands or has wetlands on it.
Okay.
As to the points where the proposed house is within 30 feet, right here off number 15, it's 23 feet, and I believe it's the same over here next to above flag 30.
Your cursor's on lot A. I was concerned about the distance from the westernmost side of the house to the wetlands, and then on the southernmost side of the house on lot B to that wetland. And those are under the 30-foot, as I understand your drawing.
If I understand your question correct, I believe you're correct.
Okay, so I just like to go on record, sir, as Mr. Chairman, as saying that the incursions should not be encouraged, and the mitigation of the junk removal and the storm sewers is not totally irrelevant, but marginally helpful. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Does anyone else have any questions or comments on this hearing? All right, I don't hear any. James, because you're going to do the site walk with Brad, we'll have to continue it.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I believe I should ask you to continue both hearings to your next meeting.
Right, and that will be February 16th.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, if I may just add that, the site walk is important in terms of delineating these wetlands, but this 23 feet, and in fact, there's on the southernmost direction, it's only a 20-foot difference to the wetland. So, to me, there's got to be a lot of focus on those distances.
Correct, Bob. All right, James.
Okay, I think I understand what you're looking for.
Okay, we'll see you next month.
Okay, thank you. Bye.
Plastered all over.
Okay, hopping down in our agenda, we have a continued public hearing regarding the abbreviated notice of resource area delineation filed by 160 Holden Street LLC for wetland resources at 274 to 378 Holden Street. I think I saw Rich Kirby on tonight. Rich, are you there? Brad, do you see
Sure.
Rich? Do you see Rich on the attendance list there?
I do not. Just give me one quick.
He was on
But
early.
he also reached out to me beforehand. So
Okay.
Okay. No, I don't see him. But if the commission's okay with it, I can update it, and I'm comfortable with the commission rendering a decision tonight.
Okay. Brad, just before you say anything further, do we have a file number on this one now?
We do.
Oh, we do have it. Okay. So that came through. All right. Why don't you give us an update, Brad?
All right. Let me just pull it up. Plan here. So, and also, I think the commission's peer review consultant for this might be attending this as well, although I didn't see him there. So if Paul McManus is present, feel free to go ahead and chime in.
I'm here, Brad.
Okay, thank you. So I'll give a quick brief overview of what we've done since the last meeting. So essentially there were two resource areas that were delineated on the plan, over in this area here, as well as this area here. And at the time of the last meeting, what I had bigger questions on was what was labeled as a drainage channel or some other feature through the center of the site here. And that's really what I wanted to, the main reason to have peer review for this was to take a harder look at that. We did take a look at that area. We did conclude that there was not any jurisdictional wetlands there. We also looked at I'm struggling to find a north arrow on here, but anyway, to the left of the page over in here, we looked at that resource area as well. We did confirm the delineation there. What we did find was a additional resource area, or more or less an extension of a BVW than what was originally flagged. So I think the original plan, the flagging stopped somewhere in this area, and we discovered that it actually continued further down the page. And there's actually an existing drainage culvert that may intercept it in this area and then go out into what looks like Pleasant View Street. And it's purple, I can't read it, but these streets over in here. So there was some changes and some flags added in that area. Of note, in this particular area, the project proponents stopped flagging, mainly because it may actually go off-site a little bit. So the flagging's accurate, except for a gap in this area. So if the commission renders a decision tonight, you may just want to make note of that in the decision, that there should be additional resources here noted if there's ever any project that comes in within this area. Same thing for off-site wetlands. We did notice, I forget the exact location, but on the other side of Holden Street, there were some areas where there was clearly wetlands there that would project a buffer zone at a minimum onto the site. So again, those resource areas were off-site, so the project proponent didn't flag something on property that they didn't own. But going forward, if there's ever any project that comes to this site, they really should be showing that as well. And again, Mr. McManus is here. He did submit a findings letter to the commission, which kind of summarized what he's done for us, and I did put that in the Google Drive. I'm not sure if anybody's had a chance to read that yet, but I can certainly let him expand on anything that I may have missed while he's here as well. Paul, you're up.
Thank you. Again, Paul McManus from Ecotech on behalf of the commission. As Brad said, I walked it with Brad and Rich Kirby from LEC, who did the delineation. I think Brad summarized it pretty well. I would just add that for the area down the center of the site, there's a significant grade across the site, and there's a significant intermittent flow channel there. We looked hard at that, back to whether we thought it was a jurisdictional resource area, because it clearly transmits significant flows at times. What we found was that there was predominantly upland vegetation all the way along it. If you're familiar with the nuances of the stream definition, it's important to know what's tributary to the stream. So we actually walked up gradient a fair way to confirm that where the stream essentially petered out, we couldn't find a channel anymore, and confirmed that it only flowed from upland. So that's an important distinction. And then in addition to that, we walked the full length of it all the way down to Holden Street. And there are a couple spots where you have some red maple, some facultative wetland vegetation along the way. But in no case did we find, in my opinion, an area that represented a wetland plant community. So as a result of that, even though this area, as I said, due to topography and there's a lot of ledge out there, does carry some significant water at times, we felt it did not fit the definition of a jurisdictional resource area. And I do see Rich Kirby just joined down at the bottom of my screen.
Hi, everybody. Sorry for the delay.
But that kind of summarizes it, Mr. Chairman. I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right. Why don't we Rich, we just had quite a briefing from both Brad and Paul.
Yes.
So we're going to go into some questions right now based on what they've given us.
Okay.
And if you want to add anything at the end, I'll go to you for further comment. Martha?
So I have a question for Brad. Brad, you mentioned resources on the other side of the property boundary and said that if anything was going to be done to those lots in the future, that they would need to be able to investigate the resources or consider the impact on the resources. What's the process if those aren't flagged? I'm just curious about the process for recording that consideration going forward for future work.
Okay, well, just for clarification, so I'm not misunderstanding your question, Martha. So what I was getting at is work on the subject parcel that's before us tonight, not work on the other parcel. So the wetlands on the parcels across the road, they would project a buffer zone, at least in our opinion, of which would be, Conservation Commission jurisdictional areas. So if someone were to, present the project on this subject parcel, there's clearly some jurisdictional areas on that lot that's not shown today, not wetland resources, but the buffer zone. So that should be shown on any project proposal in the future. And in terms of recording, well, anything that would get recorded would be, this ANRAD presumably is for the lot in front of us. So if work's going to be done on that lot, then that would get recorded on the title of that lot. Does that answer your question, Martha?
I think so. I just it's one thing to talk about the resources that are present, but I think as I've learned in my many years, or relatively many years on the commission, it's important to get things in writing going forward. And I just wanted to make sure that there was a process for carrying that memory forward.
And as as part of my advice, and it's also spelled out in our consultant's memo, you'd want to note that in the ANRAD decision, that there is a buffer zone there, just so that that's not missed at some point in the future.
Okay, thank you. I'm all set.
Jason?
No questions at this time.
Bob?
Yeah, I just following up on Martha's, wouldn't it be appropriate to actually note the location of this jurisdictional area, the buffer zone on this NRAD? Brad or Rick?
I don't necessarily think so. Just because we don't know where a future project, for instance, may be. If that future project happens to be way, again, I don't recall the north arrow, but if it's way at the top of the page of that plan, then that's a moot point of where that wetland resource area is, hundreds or 1,000 feet by the road. So I think if you note that it's there in this decision, I don't think it necessarily has to be firmly delineated at this point. I recognize, having done consultant work before, I recognize the hurdles of sometimes doing wetland delineation on a parcel your client doesn't own. So if it becomes important to a future project, then I think the commission can certainly request or require it at that point. But for the purpose of this ANRAD application, I think simply noting that there is a buffer zone there so that it's not missed in the future, I think it covers what the commission needs to at this point.
Yeah.
Well, I think, frankly, Brad, I think you and I are in agreement. I'm just saying that it should be noted on the plan.
Yeah.
But that's okay. If you think it's appropriate to note it in writing or in some kind of condition with our approval, I'm okay with that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I think John froze. There he is.
Somebody's frozen, yeah.
Yeah, it's me. It's me. Hey, can you hear me, Bob?
Yeah, I can hear you. I'm all done, thank you.
Yeah, my connection's dropped out. I just wanted
Okay.
to add something to that. This is the ANRAD is it's a notice of resource area delineation. So we're really only delineating the resource area. And when you're talking the buffer zone line, which would come into this lot from the adjacent lot, that's a jurisdictional line, the buffer zone. That's now within the purview of the Concom. So they're really, we're really only looking at the resource area, not the buffer zone area on this particular type of filing. But you're absolutely right. We got to make a note that there is impact from the buffer zone on an adjacent lot. Can you hear me, Bob?
Yeah, I heard you, but I'm fine.
Okay.
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 Thank
Yeah,
you.
my screen seems to be hanging up here.
Okay.
All right. Are you all set, Bob? Ken?
Yes, yeah, go to Ken. I'm all set. Thanks.
Ken, can you hear me, Ken?
I'm all set too. I'm good.
Okay. Let's go back to Rich. Rich, do you have anything you want to add to this?
Just that we fully anticipate, a finding or something to that effect in the ORAD that describes wetlands to the southwest of Holden Street. If and when the applicant proceeds forward with a design and wants to file a notice of intent with the Conservation Commission, we will reach out to the property owner and see if we can't get permission or access to delineate those wetlands, or at least the ones that are within 100 feet of the property. If permission is granted, we will likely delineate those. If not, we'll have to do the best we can to estimate where the buffer zone is. I suppose a worst case scenario would be is if the wetland boundary was right at the edge of pavement or at the toe of slope, descending from the pavement to the southwest of Holden Street. We could hold a very conservative line there and draw the 100-foot buffer zone and label it approximate 100-foot buffer zone. We'll cross that bridge when we get there, but that's our thinking at this moment.
Okay. Let's go to the public. Is there anyone in the public who has any questions or comments regarding this hearing? All right, I'm not hearing any. Brad, are you comfortable with us closing it tonight then? You do have the file number, you said.
Yes.
All right. Hearing no further questions or comments from the public, we'll close the hearing.
Thanks very much, everybody.
You're welcome. Okay, moving on. We have another continued public hearing, and this is regarding the notice of intent filed by Michael Perdoni for the construction of a garage for commercial vehicles with upstairs storage and small office space area at 7 Forest Avenue. I saw David Sadowski here tonight. So, David?
Yes.
I know last meeting you had just gotten in a revised set of plans, and I know Brad has had a chance to look at them. And why don't we go right to Brad? Brad, can you give us your opinion on the latest set of revisions?
Yeah, give me 1 second.
Yep.
Can you see that, John? Is it presenting okay?
If you could blow it up just a little bit more, that would help. Yeah, that's good.
Okay, so there were some revisions. I don't know if everybody's had a chance to look what was in the drive yet, or what you recall from the last time it was in front of the commission. But there's the notable change is the location of the parking spaces, so that we no longer would have vehicular parking in the middle of the private roadway there, along with some other minor tweaks. There really wasn't much to I forget. This might be the second set of revisions since the last meeting. I'm unsure, but I know the last time that Mr. Stowski submitted a revision to us, there really was only very few minor changes that needed to be done at that point. So I guess to summarize it, I'm okay with the plan set right now. I don't know if the applicant or his representative want to give a more detailed overview of what the commission wants at this point, but at least on my end, I'm okay.
Through the chair, this is David Sadowski. The plan set that you had seen last meeting, there were 12 different points that Brad wanted done. One was, we found out from the fire department, we needed to have at least a 20-foot lane or a 20-foot way in front of the building. So instead of going for 15 feet, we widened it to 20. What that basically did was open things up a lot. That's why we moved the parking. Brad reviewed that set. We made those 12 different changes to the plan, and he came up with 4 more items he wanted. He wanted to see details on the swales. He wanted to see a more realistic hay bale line. The hay bales had to come up to the edge of disturbance, and we tweaked them and moved them back. We stayed under 5,000 square feet of disturbance. We're at maybe 4,800, and the plan seemed to meet all of the last set of revisions that Brad had asked for. We actually revised them twice since we've been in front of the commission, and these are the latest, and they seem to meet all the different comments and replies that Brad had.
Okay, let's go to questions from the commission. Martha, anything?
No, I'm set. Thank you.
Jason?
I'm all set.
Bob?
I'm all set.
Ken?
All set.
I'm all set. And let's see if there's anyone in the public with any questions or comments on this hearing. All right, I'm not hearing any, so we will close the hearing.
Thank you.
You're welcome, David. Okay, moving on to our next hearing. Again, it's another continued public hearing, and it's regarding the notice of intent filed by the Massachusetts Department of Conservation and Recreation Dam Maintenance Program for the rehabilitation of the Rosin Hill Dam located at 315R Prospect Street and 83R Hill Street. Do we have anyone tonight?
Yes, this is
DCR?
Rick Hanavan from Time Bond on behalf of
Okay,
DCR.
All right, Rick. I think last month you gave us a pretty good overview of the project, and we were lacking a file number, I believe, at that time.
That's correct.
We weren't able to close it. Was there anything else that you wanted to say tonight?
Not only, I'm here for questions if you have them. I agree. I think we had kind of gotten through questions, but if there's anything else someone wants to ask before you close, definitely ask away.
All right. Well, let's go to questions from the commission. Martha?
I have none. Thank you.
Jason?
I'm all set.
Bob?
I'm good.
Ken?
All set.
Brad?
I'm all set.
Okay, we'll turn to the public. Are there any questions or comments from the public tonight on this hearing? All right, I'm not hearing any, so we'll close the hearing, Rick.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Okay, we have another continued public hearing regarding the notice of intent filed by Gold Star Builders, Inc. for the construction of a building / garage addition to replace an existing garage, deck construction and breezeway at 65 to 67 Lear Street. I think I saw Nick. Yes, Nick is there. Nick, do you want to tell us where you stand tonight? Again, I think yours was one without a file number. Was that correct? Was it last-
Correct. We had no file number at the last meeting. We coordinated with DEP and a file number has been issued. And there's one minor request that we not use straw wattle, and we modified the erosion control detail to include erosion control fence with hay bales versus the straw wattle.
Okay, and that was about it, I believe.
Correct. That's all I had on my notes.
Yep. Let's go to questions from the commission. Martha,
No questions.
Jason,
No questions.
Bob,
All set.
Ken,
All set.
Brad.
I'm all set.
Let's go to the public. Are there any questions or comments from the public tonight on this hearing? Okay, I don't hear any. We will close the hearing, Nick.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. Martha, do you want to read the RDA?
Absolutely, Mr. Chair. Notice is hereby given in accordance with the provisions of General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, that Westbrook Crossing Trust, 1 Westbrook Crossing Drive, Shrewsbury, has filed a request for determination of applicability for the removal of brush, a fallen tree, and detritus at 6 Essex Drive. A public meeting will be held on the above request at 7 p.m. on Tuesday evening. This is from last month, so it says December 15, 2020, but we are now at January 19, 2021.
Okay, do we have a representative for this hearing?
Yes, Joe McGrail. I'm a resident at Westbrook Crossing and also a trustee member.
Okay, Joe. Joe, why don't you give us a rundown of what you want to do with some specifics
Well,
regarding removal?
This is my first time ever doing this, so.
That's all right.
Yeah, so there's a stream that right near 5 and 6 Essex that runs basically from, past St. John's Field through Westbrook Crossing under the road, and it actually exit out somewhere near Main Street. At 5 and 6 Essex, the request is to remove some of the foliage, approximately 40 feet by 15 feet of this foliage. There's a lot of downed trees, overgrowth. The concern to the community that has been brought to me by one of the residents is that with this overgrowth, this tree, some trees have already fallen down, that it will affect and clog the culvert, hence damming the culvert and then having the water build up and then potentially go into the residence finished basement. So the request is to clean up the debris, cut a few trees down. Certainly not, talking about defoliating. I learned a lot today in the call so far. We're just really trying to get rid of some of the dead wood, a few branches that are hanging over, and then also potentially that could fall on to one of the houses.
Okay. Brad, have you been in that area to see how much has to be done? I know it mentions one tree that has to be removed. Is that in the brook itself, the tree? Is it a fallen tree, or is it a tree that you want to take down, a live tree that you're removing?
It's actually a live tree. We do have an arborist on our payroll.
Yep.
And he is suggesting that that tree comes down.
Okay. I know on the notice, it does say that there's a fallen tree also. So is there
Yeah,
more than one tree we're talking about then? A live tree and a fallen tree?
there are some fallen trees. I can't tell you exactly. I mean, I was walking my dog today and I looked at it again because I knew I'd be on this call. But yeah, there's one tree that overhangs, and then there's some other dead ones that are in the water. I don't know if they're necessarily have already fallen down or about to fall down, but they're pretty close to the water. The concern is just to not block the culvert and then potentially have some flooding damage to the 2 units. And again, I'm open for questions. I'm not familiar with this process, Mr. Chairman. So
all right. Well, let's go to Martha, and we'll go through questions, and then I'm sure Brad will guide us.
Well, I haven't seen the crossing, so I really will defer to Brad. But I do just want to mention that to Mr. McGrail that this is kind of a tricky process because people have a tendency to want to clean things up, but nature in its wisdom is inherently messy, and a lot of the growth serves for wildlife cover and for microbial processes that we cannot see that are necessary to a healthy environment. And the trees are taking up water and helping with flooding and all of that. And so we try to balance potential damage and risk to property with the need to let nature do her work. So that's where this commission is coming from in this discussion. Okay. So really appreciate you being here and making the effort to talk to us about it.
Yeah, I totally understand that. And again, as a board member, this has been brought up on the board. The board has discussed it. Well, we took it seriously, that we wanted to come to you guys and to request a permit to do something because we knew there was an effect to touching any of the land. So, so we wanted to make sure we came to you, seek your guidance on what your suggestions were. And again, I'm new to the board. I'm a new member to Shrewsbury, but certainly understand the rules and regulations of the environment, or I try to understand them. So, I respect the tricky process. I truly do. I mean, I walk my dog out there all the time. I see things falling down by St. John. So, I understand. So I appreciate the comments.
Thank you. Okay, I'm set for now.
Jason.
Yeah, I don't have any questions. I was just looking at the application and the pictures, and to Martha's point, it's difficult, I think, to get in there and remove things. But if there were, I'm not opposed to getting in getting in and cleaning out the culvert and doing things of that nature. But again, I haven't seen the site, so I'll have to defer to Brad as well. So that's it.
Okay, Bob?
No questions, Mr. Chairman.
Ken?
All set.
Brad, you want to tell us where we should go from here? I think it looks like we would have to walk the site and sort of agree upon the level of effort to be put in here.
That's certainly an option. I did have some concerns the way the application is presented. I know when I had conceptual discussions before the RDA was filed, I was kind of envisioning it being a much smaller project, but as you can see what I'm sharing, it kind of shades an area of, what I read is essentially like Martha may be fearing is kind of a cleanup, clearing type project. With respect to the culvert itself, at least when I was last out there didn't seem to be any concern on my end regarding any obstructions to the culvert. keep in mind, I'm not sure, I know some of the commission members may have been involved with this way back when it was permitted in the 90s. But that is a massive, massive culvert. It's more of a bridge than a culvert, if anything. So it's not something that a tree falling, 20, 30, 40 feet upstream is going to impact. There's been quite a bit of flood concerns with the residents there when the flood maps changed. So I've had many, many discussions over the years. So I can sense the, concern and sensitivity to flood in there, because a lot more people in that particular neighborhood are more aware of flood issues, let's say. So that may be, potentially part of what's driving it as well. But I do agree with the chair that, there's a few options, I guess. If the commission wants to take a closer look at it, that's fine. I'd certainly be willing to go out there. If there's a tree that's fallen, and it, makes sense to remove it by hand, I really don't see the need to even have an RDA for something like that. If there are healthy trees that they want to be removed, then maybe an RDA for that. But ultimately, all of this area that's being shown is wetland and riverfront. It's, none of it's just simply buffer zone. And keep in mind too, the stream itself, a little bit sensitive to work near it. It's actually, before it was delisted, it was wood turtle habitat. So for when this project actually went in, there was, it was shortly before I got into Shrewsbury, but I do remember looking at the file when we first started dealing with the flood map issues. There was some bedding material that was put in there, imported from Canada, I think, just to create habitat for the wood turtle. So I'd be a little bit concerned about, really narrowing down the scope and making sure that somebody doesn't just go in there and do more harm than good, let's say.
Okay.
Yeah, if I may, I know we're not, in our board meetings that we had coming up to submitting for the permitting, there wasn't any chat about any machinery or anything of that coming in. I think it was not, I know that it was all going to be done by hand. So just so you guys know that. And also, again, I'm representing the community. I'll certainly take on any suggestions, recommendations. I would welcome a visit. I believe, Brad, if I can use your name, seems like you're the guy that does all the walkthroughs. We would welcome that, and also, welcome your.
Joe, I lost your audio for the last 30 seconds, so I'm not sure what you said beyond having Brad possibly come down and do a walkthrough, but I think that's what we'll do if Brad's amenable to that. Brad?
I'm okay with that.
Okay, so I
And
guess.
Mr. Chair, I would be interested in participating in that
Okay.
walk.
All right, that sounds good. We can set something up. And Joe, would we go through you to set up a time to meet you? Joe?
Hi, I'm Jan Dearden. I have the commission here. Is that right?
Yes, this is we're in a hearing. Are you calling regarding?
Yeah. I was muted while Joe McGrail was speaking to you. I was muted to let him do it, but I'm actually on the board as well. In fact, I had dealt with Brad when we did the flood issues and so forth. Yes, we would. Since Joe was doing this, that would be good if you could set it up with him. If whomever would like to come and look at the site. One other thing that Joe didn't mention, there is like a retaining wall like behind that 5 and 6 Essex, and the trees are starting to make that well, not deteriorate, but yeah, I guess you would call it deteriorate. That we were also of, that was also of one of the concerns why we were hoping to. The person from mosquito control we called first because some years back there was a problem and we had her, and I realize she isn't, one of you people, but she kind of agreed that to do a little cleanup would probably be beneficial as far as the mosquitoes were also concerned. But I realize all the restrictions and so forth. That's why we went to you people. But we would sincerely appreciate that if you would come and take a look at it. And if you could set the time up with Joe, if he wasn't available, I could be. His phone must have died. I know he was.
Yeah, no.
I'm back. I froze. I apologize.
Oh, that's okay. I just kind of took over, Joe. But I said that if they want to contact you, is that okay by you? They wanted to know who they should contact to come in.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, probably the best way, Joe, is to email Brad and set up a time via email. Brad, is that the best way to do it?
Yes. Yep. Whoever wants to attend other than Martha, send me an email, and that way I can make sure that everybody's there.
And Jan, since you're on the call, do we have Brad's email?
It's actually on the town website, Joe. So if you just go on to the town of Shrewsbury,
Okay.
and go into conservation,
Yeah, I've done that.
You'll see Brad's contact information.
Okay, sure. I'll take that. And send an email to Brad to set something up.
Okay.
But, again, my apologies on, that I know we're all getting tired of a year worth of Zoom calls, or Google calls, whatever. So I apologize for the
That's
technical.
no problem.
And,
so what we'll do tonight then is, let's see, is there anybody in the public who has any comments on this particular hearing? It was advertised. Let's give a few minutes to see if anybody else is going to come into the call. All right, I'm not hearing anyone else out there willing to comment. And what we'll do is we'll keep this particular application open.
Okay.
Continue it to our next meeting. And our next meeting is February 16th.
Okay.
All right.
Well, I appreciate you guys taking the time, letting us speak, and you have yourself a good evening.
You too, Joe. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much.
I thank you as well.
Yep. Thanks, Jan.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Martha, can you do the next RDA, please?
Certainly. Notice is hereby given in accordance with the provisions of General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, that Hong Song Chu, 4 Keys House Road, Shrewsbury, has filed a request for determination of applicability for the removal of trees at 4 Keys House Road. A public meeting will be held on the above request at 7 p.m. on Tuesday evening. Again, this was last month, December 15, 2020. It is now January 19, 2021.
Do we have a representative tonight? I think I do see someone there.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, this is Hang Sang Chao.
Yes.
I'm the co-owner of number 4 Keys House Road, and we are new to the town of Shrewsbury. We moved in about a few months ago. I love the town very much, and we're trying to assess the house and also the lot. There are a number of trees that we find out has been dangerously close to the house and has made some damage to the, especially the south side of the house, both the gutter, the roof, and also the chimney. And also a few other trees that the conditions are worrying to me. Some of the trees, the branches already fallen down, and very preventive. are dead. So we are applying to remove a few trees, especially those close to our house. Also at the same time, because we have an elderly living with us, and also a young daughter, they prefer to have more sunlight. That's another reason we want to see whether or not we can get more sun, especially on the south side of the house. I have a application filed in, and also a test. Let me see whether or not I can quickly go through a few pictures. I'm not sure you can see the screen I'm sharing right now.
Yes, we can see it now.
Okay, thank you. This actually is the lot, our lot. Not really rectangular, but pretty much. And there is a wetland, and some of the trees actually are within the 100-foot distance from the wetland. That's why we are applying for this project. And I just want to mention the 3 pine trees. I'm not sure you can see the actually let me point out. These 3 pine trees are very close to the house and has made some damage to the outside of the house on the south side. And I mentioned in the application that some of the trees, this one especially, this one, and these are all maple trees. They are in that condition. Some of the branches already dead, and they are also very close to the house. Even if you look at the inclinations of the trees, some of them are. I'm worried that if there is a big storm, there may be like fall toward the house. That's another reason we like to take some actions toward the trees. With Mr. Stone's suggestion, I put in quite some details with regard to the lot and also the locations of the trees, and also what we plan to do with them. So I don't know whether or not you want me to go into more details, but I'll stop here for now to see whether or not you have any questions or you need me to go into more details. Thank
Do you have any more picture? Oh, can you
Yeah.
show us?
Yeah.
Those are the ones very close to the house that you were mentioning.
That is true. These are the 3 pine trees that's very close, especially this one. What I call it P1. It's already like actually the roof, the gutter, and also this chimney. It already have some damage done by the branches of this tree. And you can see from this picture, they are kind of, inclining toward the house. I don't know. This is the in Shrewsbury Hills, the community. I think I was told by the previous owner these trees were planted when they moved in at the very beginning. So it used to be like probably small trees, but right now they've all grown to be not really giant trees, but as you can see how tall they are. So these are the 3 pine trees. This is just another picture to show they are already scratching the chimney outside. There are a few maple trees I also put over there. This one, M1, is leading toward the house, toward this, but this is on the south side, south corner of the tree. So this one, and also there are some branches are already like fall down. It's not completely on the ground, but they are broken already. So that's another dangerous trees for us. There are these few trees on the on the west side of the house, and M3 is a maple tree. There's a big hole already inside the tree, and one of the branches already dead. You can see that's actually it's broken dead. Same thing with M3 and M5 as well.
Can you just stop right at that picture? I just want to get Brad's comment. Brad, can you comment? Are we anywhere near the wetland line at that point? Brad?
I think Brad is having computer issues. He's working on it.
I don't hear. Okay, we can come back to that one later. You can keep going with your.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, those are all the trees we're considering removal. And yeah, that's actually just M3. I mentioned that there's this one, the branch is already, as you can see from the picture, is already dead. And also there's a hollow hole in the middle. And they look pretty fragile, even though I'm not a tree expert, but you can see from the branches. This is this is one of the maple tree. You can see this M6. It's a pretty dangerous. It seems to be like collapsing. Again, from my point of view, and this one actually showing this is like a 3 p.m. in the afternoon, a bright day with a lot of sunshine. But we like to get more sun, mostly because of the we have elderly people who like to prefer more sunlight for their health, and also a little child. There's another tree which is already tilting toward the ground. This actually is another tree on the south side of the house. I don't know. This seems to be dangerous. Maybe in a year or two, if there's a big storm or like snow, ice, I'm afraid this is going to fall down. Yeah, there's some of the branches. You can see this. I took this picture because the tree branch is broken. Not in a very good health condition for sure. Yeah, that's some of the pictures that attached based upon Brad's suggestions. And again, coming back to this picture, I got this picture from the Shrewsbury GIS website. I'm not sure this is really the official one, but this is the wetland. I believe this part is about 100 feet from the wetland. As far as I know from this picture, these few trees are not within the 100 feet distance from the wetland. But Brad seems to be I think he mentioned that there is another map showing the wetland boundary, which is different from this one. So, but again, this one I got from this website, and it seems to be official to me. But I'm open to any kind of suggestions.
All right. Why don't we? I did see Brad back. Brad, can you jump in here and give us your comments relative to this lot? You have some historic knowledge on it.
Sure. I'm just going to take over the screen sharing for a moment. So, and just to give a very brief overview of the resource area. So this is our GIS that was being described. And, rule of thumb for GIS is if it shows up wetland, it's wetland, but there can quite often be a lot more wetlands than what's there. So that's the town data layer. And for instance, there's one of the state ones. This is closer to what's there, although the wetlands are probably even a little bit beyond than what's on this. So most of what was being shown did look like it was all buffer zone work, with the exception of maybe one or two of the trees that would actually be within the swamp itself. I think conceptually, I think there was some brief email back and forth regarding additional project scope, and some of that was to do a garden area. And one of the suggestions I had was to hold off on that, because I thought that was indeed going to be within the wetlands, as well as there may be some drainage easement constraints there as well. So there's significantly more wetlands than what our GIS shows, for sure. But I do think most of those trees are in the buffer zone, except for, like I said, maybe one or two at the most could possibly be right within the swamp there. And in the pictures, it's pretty clear to tell just from the pictures as well.
Brad, could you put the state wetland delineation up, please? Thank you.
And that's fairly close to the house. I mean, as you can see just from that corner right there, we're, approximately 20 feet. And that's GIS. It shows up on GIS, it's wet, most of the time it goes beyond that. Certainly beyond the towns. I think the state line is a lot more close to being accurate to what's actually there.
Brad, is that side where the maples are? Can you just highlight where the maples were located?
I'd have to.
I know where the pines were. They were up in the front corner there. They look
So,
like
yeah. So if I go back to the application,
yeah,
which I have open on another tab right now. So it was M1 through M6. So there were some to the side and some behind the house. So it was, the maples weren't isolated to one area. It was throughout.
okay. Behind
So
the house,
the
wasn't there
the
quite a lot
ones-
of maples behind the house?
What was that, John? I'm sorry.
Were there? It seemed like there were quite a line of maples behind the house. I think he had a photo. It looked like it was to the rear of the house.
I can pull that up. Give me one second. This one here.
Yeah, that's behind the house, correct?
Yes.
So where would you put in line relative to that picture, roughly? Right about
Yeah,
where the maples are.
I didn't go out to try to delineate the wetlands for this particular project. By eye, that's pretty close.
Yeah.
Certainly, I think further, kind of beyond this edge, it almost looks like the topography changes a little bit and you might go more to up, but as you move to the left, it's looking like grade-wise and some of the staining that it's getting, closer to a wet area.
Yeah. What would you suggest, Brad, for this lot? There are definitely upland trees that could be removed without any question.
Well, as I look at even the ones that, I think the ones on that edge are certainly close enough that I wouldn't be overly concerned in terms of losing any value, simply because there is a heavy forest behind it, and everything is fairly close to the house there. I don't, if the commission's okay with removing those roughly 6 there, I wouldn't be opposed to that.
Okay. What about to the side of the house?
So again, those are the ones that were, a lot more, if not with certainty, very close to it being within the swamp there. But those, condition-wise, those are in a lot worse shape. And what am I sharing right now? Which tab? Is it the photos or?
Photos.
Okay, so as I've been scrolling, you've been able to see that?
Yep.
Yeah, so you can see what I'm referring to here.
Yep.
So even though, even something that's dying or dead can provide habitat and things that we've discussed in the past, it's not as if we're removing, the only tree in the woods there. And, I see it as being on the edge of the lawn basically, and there's still quite a bit of swampland behind it. So it's, value-wise, I don't see it as being overly important.
Okay.
I also asked a question about the pine trees that are very close to the house, on the side of the house as well. Yeah, near the very top, if you may. Yeah.
That's all upland, right, Brad? That should be all upland.
Right. I mean, that's definitely all upland. Yep.
May I ask a question?
Go ahead, Arthur.
If the maples that are in bad shape, if they were to fall, would they hit the house?
Well, I believe if this M1, I believe they will. Actually, all of them. Other than there's the one that's like 6 degrees to the ground. Yeah, they all pose a potential threat to the house. Especially M3.
They're tall enough that they would encounter the house if they fell.
Yes, they're taller. Basically, if they fell on the ground, they are going to touch the house for sure. They're going to hit the house for sure. There's a picture I show. You probably can have a feeling about it. I think I don't remember. If you go down a little bit, actually, when I show the sunlight, yeah, if you keep going down, yeah, this one you can see the distance. The tree, when the tree falls toward the house, it's going to hit the house.
Martha, are you thinking of doing that 10-foot cut, leaving
I am, and the reason that I am is because there are so many trees that the homeowner has identified that it seems like a lot to take down at once, and I'm concerned about the lawn encroaching. You know, there's this line of trees. I'm concerned about the lawn growing, and so I would like to do what's necessary to protect the house, but to continue to maintain the lawn wetland delineation there. And I'm also concerned about the habitat removal. It is our trees are not perfect. They show their age. They grow in different ways, and old trees have habitat value. The host owls and woodpeckers and all sorts of things, which again are wonderful things for young children and for elders, people who are at home, to be able to watch and experience. So there's all sorts of value there. But it's mainly the number of trees coming down at once that would concern me. So I would want to moderate that impact.
Thank you. And just one quick thing from me is that the pine trees actually are kind of our top priorities for the moment because they're so close to the house. The pine trees, we can take maybe a few steps, monitoring if we remove the pine trees first to see how it's going to change maybe in a year. Maybe we will remove some of the pine trees that's very close. These branches are very close to the house on the back side of the house first, and then monitor other situations. And then if we feel need to, we'll probably take actions toward the other trees. In other words, welcome your monitoring, and we are also well aware of the situation to our surroundings and also the wetland. That's why we suggested to Mr. Stone at the beginning, we want to take some steps to plant a few new young trees and also have a garden that can hold the soil and all the wetland. So that's also something in our mind too, and we highly likely will take some actions toward that too.
Thank you. I'm all set.
Okay. Just so I understand you, if tonight we gave you approval to do the pine trees that were to the side of the house, to remove them right to the ground, you would hold off on any other tree removal for a year and monitor it?
Yeah, that's definitely something that's well, I would also prefer some of the maple trees that is especially the branches kind of leaning toward the house, because I'm worried about those branches too, especially you know, I use a number. I'm 3. I'm 5. They are kind of like really dangerous.
Yeah.
So I
Mr.
would
Chairman?
prefer- yeah.
Yep. Go ahead,
Yeah.
Bob.
Well, you know, I sympathize with this homeowner. I think these trees probably should come down. Certainly the pine should come down.
Definitely the pines.
The maples, I think, you know, people don't spend money taking these trees down lightly, and they must have some feeling of threat from the trees. I wouldn't have any problem with leaving the stumps in, or leaving a 10-foot stick up, and limiting his removal of any stumps to the pines. But I would be in favor of approving this as requested with those conditions.
All right. Let's see. Let's go to Jason. Jason, what's your feelings on this?
I'm in agreement. I mean, the pines, I think, definitely should come down.
Yep.
Clearly in the picture, they're a hazard to the house. They're entirely too close. So I believe they should come down. The maples, you know, I think they're a lot to come down at once. I'd be in favor of maybe taking down the most dangerous ones. Maybe that one that's leaning very close to the house. But I'm not really in favor of taking all of them down. To Martha's point, I think it is a whole lot of trees to come down all at one time.
Yeah.
I'm definitely in favor of getting the pines down.
Yep. Okay. Ken.
I kind of agree with what Bob's saying. Go that route.
All right. So you're in favor of everything going. And I'm sort of leaning toward where Jason and Martha are right now. You know, all the pines definitely, and then if you could be selective on some of the maples, I have no objection for anything that's leaning toward the house. And the decayed ones, Martha, cut them with what would you say? Leave 8 foot standing or 10 foot on?
Well, you'll get an arborist to do it, I assume, and so that they would be able to make a judgment call. But you could say between 8 and 12 feet, and you know, as long as when they come down, they're not going to hit the house. That's what you want to avoid.
Yeah. But would you want that on every decayed one, or would you just want to leave 1 or 2 for nesting habitat for some woodpeckers and owls and things like that? I mean,
well, if it were me, I'd want to leave them all there, but it's not me, it's the homeowner.
All right. So we're sort of split here. 3 to 2.
Well, I'll start, Mr. Chairman. I'll start with a motion if you
all right.
determine whether or not there's any comments from the public.
All right. Is there anyone from the public here tonight that wants to make any comments or have any questions regarding this hearing? All right, Bob, why don't you make your motion?
Well, I'll make a motion that we approve this as requested with the conditions that any stump removal be limited to the pines, and that any removal of maples be limited to that which is above 8 feet, subject to the judgment of an arborist.
All right, do we have a second on that?
Second.
All right, any discussion? Now this is where we're going to go back into it. Is the applicant hearing the 2 options we have out there right now for you?
Yes, I'm. Yeah, I hear it quite clear. Yeah.
Would you be amenable to having the pines, as Bob mentioned, be removed right to the ground? You know, you could stump grind them down right to the ground. That's on the side of the house.
Mm-hmm.
And as far as the maples go, let's go to the side of the house where you have decayed maples. Cutting them down so that you're going to leave standing say 8 feet or 10 feet to be determined by the arborist, just for wildlife habitat.
Mm-hmm.
And then on the back of your house, you have a couple trees in particular that you feel are leaning toward the house, or the branches are problematic. Are there? Can you give us the numbers on those 2 trees? I think you said there were 2 of them, right?
Yeah, sure. The numbers are M1, 3, 4, and 6. Yeah, M1, 3, 4, and 6. They have branches that are leaning toward the house that I consider quite dangerous to the house.
M1, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's
Not
that's 1,
5.
2,
Now
4.
5,
Huh?
yeah. Now 5.
No, not 5.
No 5. Yes, I'm 1,
1,
3,
3,
4, 6. Yeah.
1, 3, 4, 6. So you got 4 trees you wanted. So how many does that
Branches.
leave standing then from your original
Well,
proposal? I mean, just a couple shy of your whole.
I prefer I have the options of cutting them down. I to be honest, I didn't know that I didn't think very carefully about how much like underground I should leave. Basically, the stump I should leave. But basically, what the worries us about is actually the branches, especially the branches falling toward the house. So I can definitely do, at least for this application, removing the branches falling toward the house first. I'm 1, 3, 4, and I'm 1, 3, 4, and 5. I'm 1, 3, 4, and 6. They all have branches doing that. So I probably would cut those branches first. Please be reminded that I think I'm 3 and I'm 4. They have like from the ground they have not one trunk actually. It's several branches growing out. So which means that the ones that are falling toward the house, I'm probably going to cut them to the ground. But the other 1 or 2, I'm not sure this can be done. I will definitely consult the arborist or tree engineer. If I can do that, then it's going to maintain the a few other branches, especially trees. Also remove the danger to the house.
All right. Well, that's still a lot of trees coming down. Brad, are you there?
I'm here.
Can we do a quick walk through this yard and determine what we can do? And I mean, if in Bob's case where he says to take the trees down on the back of the house, is there any way we could condition this and make it he puts in a fence, a split rail fence, just so as I think Jason or somebody said, the yard's not being pushed out further into the wetland, because right now they do make a nice border.
Mr. Chairman, you're leaving an 8-foot stick.
No, you wanted to leave the 8 foot. No, okay. Okay, I was thinking bringing them right to the ground, Bob, those. Martha, if we left all of them 8 feet.
If you left all of them 8 feet, that would help to delineate the wetland, certainly.
It'll provide wildlife habitat over the years as they die out.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I'm fine with taking them down to 8 feet, all of it. I'm getting rid of the pine.
Oh, the pines are going. Yeah, the pines are all upland, Jason. So yeah, they're definitely gone.
And then all the maples, take them down to 8 feet, leave them.
Leave them, and that will be the wetland delineation.
Delineation and just be done with it.
Right, and in the future, if we see encroachment, we'll have to, address it at that point. All right, Bob, do you want to? We had a motion. Do you want to?
That's my motion, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
That was my motion.
And did you say to take the pines down to the ground too? Right down to the ground.
That the only stump removal would be limited to the pines.
Okay.
And that all the other trees would be cut as requested, except leaving a minimum of 8-foot stick subject to an arborist.
All right. All right, so we got the motion. We had a second by Ken. All in favor? Aye.
Do you have
Oh,
to
we
do a roll call, John?
We got to do the roll call on this one. Hang on. Martha,
Aye.
Jason,
Aye.
Bob,
Aye.
Ken,
Aye.
and John. Aye. All right. Do you understand what we're going to do tonight? We're going to give you a negative determination, but you're going to have conditions on it. And that's going to be leaving all of the trees, the maples, 8 feet high. But you can remove the pine trees right to the ground.
Understood.
Okay.
Thank you very much. But just a very quick question regarding moving forward. Should I get because this is my first time as well.
Yeah.
So am I going to get a permission letter or something like that from your commission or before I start the work?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Okay.
All right. Thank you very
All
much.
right. Thank you.
Thank
Yep.
you. Okay.
All right, Martha, we have another new one.
Notice is hereby given in accordance with the provisions of General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, that M.E. Realty, LLC, 605 Hartford Turnpike, Shrewsbury, has filed a notice of intent for the construction of a paved parking area, stormwater management facilities, retaining walls, and site grading associated with the construction of a 12,600 square foot office building with a garage at 5 and 9 Centec Boulevard. A public hearing will be held on the above notice at 7 p.m. on Tuesday evening, January 19, 2021.
John, are you the presenter tonight?
I am. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. For the record, John Grenier with J.M. Grenier Associates here on behalf of M.E. Realty. And just to give everybody a sense of where this is, it's on the south side of Route 20 on Centec Boulevard. The gas station and convenience store is just to the north of this site, and this site is abutted by the landfill to the east. And the resource area that we are within.
Chairman, excuse me.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I need to recuse myself from this.
Okay, Ken.
Okay, thank you. The resource area is on the property of the landfill, and that is located to the easterly side of the property. And what is being proposed is construction of a 12,600 square foot commercial building. In order to accommodate this proposed building, there will need to be a cut and a fill to create an adequate pad for both the building and the paved parking areas surrounding the building. So there would be a cut on what would be, as you look at the plan, on the north side towards the gas station, a cut on that side of the property. And
John, can you put a plan up on this?
You know what? I don't. Okay. I had to go remote.
Okay. How about Brad? Can Brad put one up?
Yeah, just give me 1 second. If you want to let John keep talking, I'll work on that.
All right.
Thanks, Brad. I appreciate it. So on the southerly side of the building, that would be where it slopes off towards the wetlands. There will be a fill area that's going to require a retaining wall. The owner is currently having that retaining wall designed. We have been before the planning board, And one of the conditions from the planning board was that they did want to see that retaining wall design as part of the planning board process. Although that retaining wall will also need to be reviewed by the building department. It will require a building permit. So, where you can see on that, that's a good sheet to show. On the right-hand side of the sheet, as you look at it, that is where there would be a retaining wall on along the property line on that right-hand side, which is the southerly side. And we are going to be in that fill area as well, capturing all of the paved areas. And on the upper right-hand corner, and that's where the grade drops off, we have separation to groundwater. We'll have a fairly significant recharge, subsurface recharge area to recharge the runoff from the paved areas. And then what is in the lower right-hand corner on the southwesterly side, that is a secondary recharge area that's going to be strictly for the runoff from the building. So we are capturing all of the runoff from all the impervious areas. We're recharging those into the ground. As I stated earlier, there will be a cut and fill operation. And as the fill operation is going on, they're going to be constructing, it's going to be a precast block retaining wall. So they'll be bringing that wall up in lifts, and that would be acting as a dam, so to speak, during construction as they're bringing it up in lifts. And if you see that pear-shaped area on the lower right-hand side, during construction, we designated that area to be about a 3,600 square foot by 3 foot deep temporary basin, so that during construction there would be an area for runoff to have a settling pond, so that we're maintaining any of the runoff from the site on site during construction. All of the site will have municipal sewer, water, utilities, so there's no septic system involved, no wells involved. I would say the biggest concern on this site is just that during construction that sufficient areas for temporary basins are provided, so that if there is a rainstorm, that it is maintained and held on site. If there were any water to overflow, it would be on that southeasterly side towards Centec Boulevard, and that is outside the 100-foot buffer. So that, and again, not that we would be planning for any water to run off site, but in a catastrophic event, if there was a problem, it is outside the 100-foot buffer. So that there is a good separation to any of the wetland areas that are off-site. But the biggest task in this project is to, as I said, just maintain adequate storage volume and pooling areas during construction. Post-construction, it's primarily just paved areas. Everything will be stabilized with either mulch areas or erosion control, permanent stabilization blankets, so that vegetation can grow up. Also during construction, as you can see, there is a silt fence and hay bale that will surround all of, I would say, the southerly side on all the down gradient areas for a silt fence hay bale. Will also be a tracking pad where the driveway curb cut is proposed to be off of Centec Boulevard. So during construction, any construction vehicles coming in will not be tracking any soil or silt out onto Centec. As I said, we have been in before the planning board. This was reviewed by Graves Engineering. For the most part, they are in agreement with our design as it was proposed. We just wanted to make sure that we had any comments from the Conservation Commission addressed prior to going back to the Planning Board. So with that, I'd put it back to the chair with any questions or comments.
All right, we'll go to the commission. Martha?
Yeah, I'm looking at the original conditions, and it looks like there are a number of old stone walls on there, John. Is that true? I don't know if Brad can go up to the, what page is it? Looks like it's page 2. I was just curious what happens to those walls in the during the course of development. What happens to the rocks? And there, in particular, it looks like there might be some interesting ones on the edge where the wetland buffer is. I was wondering if there was any plans to retain any of those, or if they interfered with the storm management systems that you've got planned.
All
I can't hear John.
walls, when we went out there with the machine, they're fairly noticeable, in all honesty, when you're out on site.
And the ones to the, I guess that would be south. It looks like they're triple walls.
Yeah, there's some boulders or stones that were at some point somebody trying to reach a little bit, but it's nothing to talk about. Old stones.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm having a hard time hearing him.
Yeah,
It's cutting in and out.
John's been breaking up badly.
I'm sorry. Can you hear me better now?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
better.
Okay. Yeah, if anything, there's just some stockpiled old field stone, Martha. It's nothing of any, there's nothing substantial out there. It's stones that were, I think, off the side historic on the site. Nothing substantial.
Okay, thank you, John. That's all I have.
Jason?
No questions at this time.
Bob?
Yes, John. I share your concern about the stormwater runoff during construction, and I'm curious. This pear-shaped pond or retention area that you've designed is designed to take all of the runoff from the construction site?
It is. That's Bob. That's the what would be kind of the lowest portion of the site.
Yeah.
Construction.
I guess my question is more towards how did you size that? Is it sized to what storm event?
Based on the impervious area on the site, we calc that it should be a volume of 7,200 cubic feet of volume. I didn't run that through for, say, a 10-year storm, but that should be able to take a fairly substantial storm.
Well, I think that's one of the things I'd want you to do, and I think you should perhaps be even a little more aggressive than 10 years.
Okay.
As you know, or as I can attest, the soil in this area is very, very difficult to control in a storm event, so that you should size this little pear-shaped pond or retention area enough to sustain, a 20, maybe even a 25-year storm without discharge.
Okay.
From the entire site. especially if, as you're saying, you're going to be cutting from one end, filling in the other, that means you're going to be collecting sediment from the entire site. So I'd like you to come back to us with some calculations in that regard.
Okay.
And that's all I had, Mr. Chairman.
All right, fair enough. Thank you.
All right, Ken's recused himself. Brad?
I'm all set for right now, Mr. Chairman, other than we did get some comments from DEP. I did forward them to John earlier today. So if he hasn't had a chance to look at that, should just take a look at that and make sure we're all set on that end as well.
Okay.
Yeah, I did take a quick peek at those, Brad, and I'll just make sure that we're all set. One thing would just be the pre-treatment, but it wouldn't take much. So I have taken a quick look at it. We'll address those.
Oh, I have another question, Mr. Chairman, if that's all right.
Yep, go ahead, Bob.
What is the proposed use of this site? I noticed he's calling it a garage. He's gonna, what kind of garage? Is it a maintenance facility or a?
No, the owner is looking at it as leasable space with potential multiple tenants. So it's flexible where he could have multiple tenants, office in the front and garage area in the back to accommodate the proposed tenants.
So there should be some thought about spillage and stuff out in the parking lots, and you've given that some thought, I presume, right?
Yeah, and again, that goes to making sure that we have the pre-treatment. We do have deep sump catch basins, but one of the comments from DEP was maybe looking at 44% pre-treatment before it goes into the recharge system, which we're going to look at doing that.
Okay, good. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, is there anyone in the public tonight who has any questions or comments on this hearing? Okay, I'm not hearing any. It sounds like we have to continue it, John? So,
Yeah, that's fine. So we'll address those comments, and we'd look to continue to the next available hearing.
Right. So this meeting's going to be continued, hearing rather, will be continued until our next meeting, which is February 16th.
Sounds good. Thank you.
All right, John. Martha. Martha, you're muted.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
Notice is hereby given in accordance with the provisions of General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, that Leuven Realty LLC, 40 Vinyl Street, Hudson, Mass. 01749, has filed a notice of intent to construct a 4,080 square foot medical office building, paved parking area, stormwater management facilities, and site grading at 235 Main Street. A public hearing will be held on the above notice at 7 p.m. on Tuesday evening, January 19, 2021.
Do we have a presenter? Is that you, John?
It's me again, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. Again, for the record, John Grenier, JM Grenier Associates. Brad, if you could help me out and put a site plan up, I'd appreciate it. I can kind of give you a quick over. Oh, there he goes. Thanks a lot, Brad. I appreciate it. Again, this is a proposed redevelopment for 235 Main Street, which historically everyone knows was the old Lundgren and Janitis, and it was the old dairy site for many, many years. We had gotten this approved through site plan approval and also with the Conservation Commission a handful of years ago for a proposed it was another medical facility for an eye doctor. If you recall, that was a much larger building. It was an 8,000 square foot building with associated parking areas for that proposal. What we are proposing for the redevelopment right now is for a dental office that is proposing a 4,080 square foot building located pretty much central on the site, and an access driveway coming off of Main Street where historically a driveway has always been, and associated parking for that. With some of the previous proposals for this site, there has historically been some concern from some of the residential abutters. We're looking to keep the elevations of the buildings down so that they wouldn't have a big office building or medical facility looming above them. So what we had done for the previous as well as this proposal is to try to keep the elevation of the site pretty much in keeping with the surrounding properties. This is a proposed one-story medical office, and it's going to look fairly residential. So we were trying to keep everything as low-key and low profile to kind of blend in with the surrounding neighborhood. And with that, we've tried to employ as much country drainage. Once you start getting into catch basins with manholes, you have structurally, you need to have elevation in order for the catch basins and for the pipes and for cover over the pipes. So in order to keep everything low, we've tried to keep everything as much country drainage as possible. So with that, we are capturing the runoff, sheet flowing it through a level spreader down a water quality swale, and then it flows in a southerly direction towards Main Street along the driveway into a forebay and then an infiltration basin. So that is capturing the runoff from the impervious areas tributary to the building. There is a pond that, as everyone knows, that's to the northwest of the property. And we are routing that. If it were to overflow, we have an outlet control structure, and we have a drain line that runs in an easterly direction and then to the south, and it discharges into an existing channel that is to the east of number 239. That's the house that's in front. There's an existing channel that runs in a southerly direction and then under Main Street. So we're maintaining that flow. If there is an overflow of the pond, we're maintaining that routes us through the site. It will be serviced by town water, town sewer, no septic system for this. We have erosion controls with silt fence, hay bales surrounding any of the developed portions of the site, so that is all contained. That's pretty much the nuts and bolts of it. Again, the biggest, we're going to be maintaining a lot of the same grade, so it wouldn't be much fill brought into the site. It's just a matter of capturing it and treating it. Again, this is a redevelopment. A lot of the site, especially from Main Street to about midpoint back in the site, there's existing pavement there now. It's all currently paved as it has been historically for years, and all of that runoff just sheet flows off the site right now with no treatment whatsoever. So we think that in terms of water quality and providing recharge to groundwater, this project is a great improvement for the site. And we think it's a good project. We have been in front of the planning board, and I think they think it's a good project. It's been reviewed by Graves Engineering as well. And again, no game changers with any comments from any of the other boards, and we're looking for some input from you guys as well. So with that, I put it to the chair.
All right, we'll go to the commission for questions. Martha?
John, I just wanted to thank you for a thorough recap of the history. I remember this project and I remember the residents' concerns. And it sounds like you do too, and you're able to take them all into account. I don't have any questions about the project.
Jason.
No, I would echo Martha's comments. I don't. I think you've definitely taken these into consideration, or the previous comments into consideration. John, I'm looking at the, drain line, and it looks like it's going out that access way. Is that correct? I know if that's the case, I know some of the abutters had some concerns. If there was overflow from the pond, is it draining towards Main Street? Am I seeing that correctly?
It would sheet flow across the site, and ultimately, well, there is a pipe that goes through now.
That's what I thought.
If you look, yeah, there is a pipe that goes through the site right now. If it were to overtop, if that was blocked, it would sheet flow down towards Main Street. But it is hard piped. There's a head wall, on that little, where you said that little access way on the right-hand side, 239. There's a head wall there, and that's where it discharges.
Okay.
Sorry if that wasn't clear.
No, it was. I'm just trying to also remember from the last time this was before us. I know some of those abutters did have concerns about, what happens if that, where that daylight on the access way, are they going to get some water in their backyards? So I know that was a concern. I also know, this doesn't appear, the last time the building was going to be, the elevation of the building proposed before was much higher, if I remember correctly. And so there was definitely concern of it being kind of an eyesore to all of the abutters, as well as lighting, kind of being over to all the abutters' lots. It doesn't look like to me that that's going to be an issue this time with it being a single story.
Right.
So I do appreciate that. That's all.
And the dental office that's moving in here is it's Songbird. They are in town. They have another location, and they are going to be moving here, so they're going to own the property. So it's a good business in town. It's already servicing people in town, so we think it's a good fit. And we did have discussions prior to, there was a zoning board hearing and planning board, and there were discussions with some of these butters to make sure that their concerns were addressed.
Thank you.
Bob.
No questions at this time. Thank you.
Ken.
I'm all set.
Brad.
So there were quite a number of comments from DEP on this project, and I had some concerns as well. Mainly, I needed to, number one, spend a little bit more time on the review, but also there's quite a bit of work adjacent to one of the resource areas for the drainage. And I have observed that over the years as actually impounding in that area. So it would be the stream to the west of the site. So I did ask John earlier today to reflag that area so I could take a look at it, just to confirm that the resource area is accurate in that location. And again, beyond doing a quick site visit to take a look at the resource areas again, I do want to spend a little bit more time on the drainage and looking at DEP's comments and making sure those are addressed as well.
Yeah, and I should have pointed this out. I did have a conversation with Brad earlier today, and the delineation where it was a lot of channels and the pond, we had used the same delineation from when we had the previous application for the eye doctor. So we are gonna go update some of those flags, particularly along Main Street on the westerly side. And as Brad said, he has noticed some impoundment there beyond where we just showed the limits of the channel that runs towards Main Street. So we'll update that. We'll go through it and make sure that Brad's up to speed on what we're proposing and what the resource areas are. If there is a BVW associated because the banks are overflowing and it's impounding, we'll add that to the plan.
Okay. Brad, anything else?
No, I'm all set right now. Thanks.
Is there anyone in the public that has any questions or comments on this hearing tonight? All right, I'm not hearing any. John, again, it sounds like we need a continuation on this.
Yeah, as I said, we'll revisit that westerly portion and we'll make updates, and I'll coordinate with Brad, making sure that he's all set in terms of.
All right, so we'll continue this hearing until our next meeting, which is February 16th.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks, John. Martha.
Notice is hereby given in accordance with the provisions of General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, that Lisa M. Hastings, 67 Bayview Drive, Shrewsbury, has filed a notice of intent for the construction of the single-family house addition at 67 Bayview Drive. A public hearing will be held on the above notice at 7 p.m. on Tuesday evening, January 19, 2021.
Art, are you presenting tonight?
I am. Thank you. Good evening. Art Allen from Ecotech. Late night for you all tonight.
I know.
So this is a small addition to an existing single-family house that has frontage on the lake. The delineation is just the bank of Lake Quinsigamond, largely walled, as you can see in the upper part of the plan. Thanks, Brad, for putting the plan up.
Brad, can you blow that up a bit? Yeah, that helps.
Yep. So yeah, to the upper part is the lake and the existing house in the middle there, and out to Bayview Drive. They're proposing to basically redevelop about 144 square feet. So about half of that is going to be demolition and redevelopment of the portion of the existing structure, and the rest is going to be existing pavement that they're going to tear up. In the end, they'll actually end up with a reduction in impervious of about 75 square feet because some of that existing driveway outside of the building addition and overhang is going to be loamed and seeded and turned into grass. So the limit of work is just outside of the 50-foot buffer, so nothing within the 50-foot buffer. They're proposing a straw wattle at that 50-foot buffer limit. They're also proposing a stockpile area at the front of the house between the house and Bayview Drive, so further away from the resource area for a protected stockpile. There will be some excavation because this addition will have a full basement. So there'll be temporary stockpiling material to backfill and then removing any excess from the site, loam and seeding everything, buttoning up. And that's about it. Pretty simple project. Be glad to field any questions.
Martha.
Thank you. I don't have any questions, but I am curious. Does the existing house have a full basement, Art?
I believe it does. I haven't been in the house. Yeah, I assume it does because, I mean, they're obviously adding, in this small addition, they're adding a basement, I assume, to expand the existing basement. I believe the applicants are on the call. Maybe they could answer that question.
Who's the applicant, Art? What's their name again?
Hastings.
Is it Hastings? Hastings?
Mr. and Mrs.
I see their name is.
Is my microphone on?
Yep.
There you go.
Okay. Yeah, so that basement, yes, it is a finished basement. He fixed it up. It was rather ratty. It was a finished basement when I bought it years and years ago, but it was a little, like a basement, finished basement.
Thank you. I was simply just curious.
Yeah.
No, it's fine. Straw wattles. If folks are okay with straw wattles, I'm okay with straw wattles. Thanks.
Jason,
No questions.
Bob,
No questions.
Ken,
All set.
Brad.
I'm all set.
Does anyone in the public have any questions or comments on this hearing? All right, hearing none, we'll close the hearing.
Thank you very much.
Yep, thank you.
Have a good night.
Good night. And our last hearing, Martha.
Just a moment, please. Not that one. Okay. Notice is hereby given in accordance with the provisions of General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, that 7 Sherrill Drive Realty Trust, 24 Sherrill Drive, Shrewsbury, has filed a notice of intent to construct a single-family residential dwelling at 601 South Street. A public hearing will be held on the above notice at 7 p.m. on Tuesday evening, January 19, 2021.
All right, Ricky,
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
are you presenting this tonight?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I will start as I have a little history, and then I'm supported by Joe Marcodent, who will take care of some technical questions. Can you hear me okay? My throat is not very good.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. I understand I'm the last presenter here, so we'll try to be quick. Do I have this screen? If I could share the plan, please?
Yes, go ahead.
Can you see my plan?
No.
Cannot. Okay. So my screen share is on.
It's not showing up.
Okay, so I just have to open it, right? Is it showing up now?
No.
Okay. Brad, could I please ask you a favor to open up? Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Brad, can you blow it up a bit again?
No, it was pretty small. That's the most I can blow it up under this app.
Is it? Okay.
So, Mr. Chairman, this is 601 South Street, which were several of the lots Mr. Zuretti had, and he got the DP file and Concom approval in 2016. And unfortunately, the filing got expired. He thought that he had extended it in 2018, but 2019, but unfortunately, it was not. They extended the septic plan, but unfortunately, this was missed. So when we applied for the building, I bought this lot among other lots. Our company owns lots on the right and on the back, and Mr. Zuretti owned land on the left. So basically, this lot, what we have done last year in April, we hired Ecotech to look at all the wetland flags once again. And that was reported to the town in June, that actually these flags are pretty much at the same spot as they were looked at in 2015 and prior to that. So what we are proposing it's pretty much the same plan which Mrs. Reddy got approval, except we reduced the area of work. It's going to be the construction area is about 30% less than the disturb area will be about 30% less than the previously proposed and approved area. The 100-foot line goes through the right corner of the house, and the edge of the house would be about 70 feet away from the resource area. And like I said, we are reducing actually the construction zone about 30% as compared to what was approved last time. So we would appreciate any question you have at this point.
Martha? Martha, mute.
No questions at this point.
Jason?
No questions.
Bob?
Well, Mr. Chairman, I can't really see the plan, but so I'm anxious to get a copy of the plan. But I do notice that there's a pretty steep slope on quite a bit of fill on this property. Is that correct, Rashid?
We are going to make a walkout basement, sir. So we basically have, just like other lots I have built, all this property from 603 South Street all the way to 577 South Street. They are kind of high in the front and low in the back. So I have built 2 other homes where we actually did a pretty good job. And you have seen the 577 South Street last June, where we had a pretty flat front yard and pretty relatively flat backyard, but it was, angle on the sides. So we have a walkout basement, and the same would do here. We'll have a walkout basement.
So those fill contours, Rashid, are they 2-foot contour intervals or 1-foot contour? Can anybody tell me that?
Joe, go ahead, please.
Evening, folks. Joe Marquardt. We prepared the site plan that you have there on the screen. The grading that you're referring to in the rear is in support of the septic system. We are municipal water, but on-site septic disposal. We have a very high water table at that rear. We have a 3-inch water table that we have to deal with. So that system is mounted up, if you will, is super elevated. That grading that you see heading west to east down towards the wetland is in support of that septic system to control breakout.
Well, my apologies, Joe. I thought that was the house footprint because I can't, like I said, I can't see the plan.
I don't know if you can see my
So
cursor.
I guess I'll just defer any other questions till I get a better look at the plan. Thank you.
Ken?
What do you have for a site stabilization plan with all this grading going on?
On that easterly edge of the grading, we have an erosion control barrier that wraps around all the area inside the 100-foot buffer, silt fence with a straw wattle.
What about stabilizations for the slopes and whatnot around the septic and the disturbed areas?
They'll receive a lumen seed treatment appropriate for that area to stabilize that slope. Obviously, no plantings will take place over the septic system. Maybe some plantings around the home, but generally this will be loomed and seeded.
Just concerned about the slopes and the area susceptible to runoff. Do you have any plans to put a fabric or stabilization fabric over those slopes?
We had at this point, we're 3-to-1 with that grading off the septic system, which we feel we can control with a lumen seed.
Also, just to mention, there is already an existing stone wall about 25 to 30 feet away from the wetland. So we're going to keep the stone wall as is, and then we're going to put further silt fence and straw bales on the inside of it. So the edge of the property is, the edge of the house is about 70 feet away from the resource area and about 45 feet away from the wall.
All right.
All set, Ken?
Yep.
Brad?
Thank you. So I guess, the application and plan that we received at the deadline was not what you're looking at now. So, I still need time to review the plan and go to the site. And, that's the reason why, Bob, for instance, you don't have the plan because we didn't even get this plan until recently. So we really are just starting to do our review process for this. So I can't really give you too much feedback at this point. Looking at it quickly, I do have some concerns that some of our stormwater management requirements through our bylaw and permitting may change this somewhat. So I would suggest that you start taking a look at that now, get that process going if you haven't already, just in case anything is going to change on the plan with that aspect as well. But I still need to put some time into this.
Okay. Let's see if there's anyone in the public out there tonight. Is there anyone in the public who has any questions or comments on this hearing? All right, I'm not hearing anyone. Rashid, it sounds like you're going to need a continuation.
Yeah, okay, Mr. Chair, I understand, and I do apologize for the last minute application. As you know, we had applied for the building permit a few weeks ago, and the property is under contract. We already have a customer, so if you wish to continue, I understand.
Well, we have to because we really didn't get plans submitted at the deadline. We're not the plans we're reviewing tonight, so there's no way we could really issue an order of conditions favorable tonight. So you're amenable to a continuation then, I take it, right?
Sure. I just want to mention that the plan we submitted was the last plan and we just improved it, but sure.
Okay. So we'll continue this hearing until our next meeting, which is February 16th.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, that concludes our meetings and hearings. Let's go on and discuss our orders of conditions right now and determinations of applicability.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we issue an order of conditions for 7 Forest Ave.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Let's do a roll call. Martha?
Aye.
Jason?
Aye.
Bob?
Aye.
Ken?
Aye.
And John? Aye.
And Mr. Chairman, I would move that we issue that we concur with the notice of resource area delineation submitted for 274 to 378 Holden Street, with the provision that there be some notation there with regards to potential influence of a 100-foot buffer from an adjoining property.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Martha?
Aye.
Jason?
Aye.
Bob?
Aye.
Ken?
Aye.
John? Aye.
And Mr. Chairman, I would move that we issue an order of conditions for the construction of at 65 to 67 Lear Street.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Martha?
Aye.
Jason?
Aye.
Bob?
Aye.
Ken?
Aye.
John? Aye.
And finally, Mr. Chairman, I move that we issue an order of conditions for the construction of addition at 67 Bayview Drive.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Martha?
Aye.
Jason?
Aye.
Bob?
Aye.
Ken?
Aye.
John? Aye. Bob, how about the 315R Prospect Street, the dam for DCR?
Oh, did I miss it? I did. Mr. Chairman, I move that we issue an order of conditions to the Department of Conservation and Recreation for dam maintenance program at 315R and Prospect Street and 83R Hill Street.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Martha?
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Jason?
Aye.
Bob?
Aye.
And
Aye.
John, aye. And
Thank you, John.
you're welcome. And we already, that negative determination of applicability for the tree cut, we already voted on that one, didn't we?
Yes.
Yeah, so we're all set there. And that's it, right? And we got one certificate of compliance. Brad's gonna talk about 5 Rolling Hill Road.
Right. I recommend you issue that one.
All right. Do you want to vote on it?
Yes.
All in favor of issuing a certificate of compliance for 5 Rolling Hill Road? All in favor? Martha?
Aye.
Jason?
Aye.
Bob?
Aye.
Ken?
Aye.
And John, aye. And that's it. It's the end of the road. Anybody
Okay.
have anything else they want to say tonight? No?
I second it. I second Ken's motion to adjourn.
Oh, he's already motioned to adjourn. Okay. All in favor, Martha?
Aye.
Jason?
Aye.
Bob?
Aye.
Ken?
Aye.
John, aye. All right, guys. Thanks a lot. It was a long
Thank
night.
you, John.
See you guys.
Thanks, John.
Take care.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.
Everyone.